Hello and welcome back to Confidence in Christ with Kayla. Today we are back in the Old Testament, and we're going to reference a New Testament verse as well. But the first one we're going to read is in Deuteronomy chapter 32, and it's verse 52. And it says, "Therefore you will see the land only from a distance. You will not enter the land I am giving to the people of Israel." And that was God talking to Moses. And if we read a little bit ahead of that, it talks about how and why Moses will not step foot in the promised land. He basically leads the people right up to it, and he can see the promised land, but he will not step foot in it because he disobeyed and didn't have faith in God. And that was God's kind of punishment to him, and that his dream wasn't going to be fulfilled right then and there. Because I heard this in a book that I'm listening to, and it just blew my mind. So remember that verse, okay, where God says that, hey Moses, look at it from a distance because you're never going to step foot in it. If we flip over to Matthew chapter 17, and it is let me see, what verse am I in? Verse 2 and 3. This is where Jesus is transfigured up on the mountain. So basically Jesus took Peter, James, and John up on this high mountain, and then in verse 2 and 3 it says, "There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. Just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking to Jesus." Now, I have read both of these verses before. I never put it together that Moses was actually standing in the promised land when he came down on the Mount of Transfiguration with Jesus and Elijah. So, his plan was to walk into the promised land all those thousands of years before and walk in with the people that he had freed from Egypt. But that wasn't God's plan. He could not because he broke the promise to God. So God said, no, it's not going to happen right now. And look at that. Years and years later, God fulfilled what Moses desired, and it was to step foot into the promised land. And he did that, not near like he expected or dreamed of, but he stepped foot into the promised land when he came down and talked to Jesus with Elijah on the Mount of Transfiguration. And I just think God works in ways that we don't always expect, and we might not get the outcomes we want right away, and they might not look like what we want, and they might be down the road, but God will always provide. Even when God gives you a resounding no, just like he gave Moses all those years ago, he still had a plan for Moses to get that dream and experience it just in a totally different way. So God is always working, and his plan is always perfect. And I hope this gives you confidence in him today, knowing that if you've heard a no from him and maybe things just aren't going like you were planning, like God has a plan, and it might be down the road or it might not be on this side of eternity, but it is going to happen because he is the God who keeps all promises and who will always provide and will always be there and wants nothing but the best for you. So today, walk away knowing that God has a plan and he's going to bring it to fulfillment on your behalf.